Beatrice, thank you for joining us on the August camp. Let's take a look first of all at your freestyle video analysis. So here's full speed over the top of the water first of all. Now, I like that you've got a nice consistent leg kick. When you're not breathing, your head position's really nice as well. There's definitely some things that we can do to help make your stroke more efficient and more powerful as well, and just make it generally feel easier so that you can speed it up when you want to and you feel like you're still catching water. So as we come off the wall here, you've got a really nice head position. Just really squeeze and stretch those arms to tighten up that streamline a touch more. But I like your fly kick. We're keeping that head in position right up until now. And that's, you can see that lift there. And obviously as we do that, it puts the brakes on. So it's going to present more surface area to the water that's coming at you and slow you down. On the breakout, try and change those leg kicks to freestyle ones a little bit sooner so that they go into freestyle just after you've started that first pull down, and make sure that it is a nice press down, not out to the side or a slip on that first pull. A big thing I need you to focus on is engaging the core. So that's where we started with the freestyle. We would think about tilting the hips to flatten off the lower back. And that's going to allow us to rotate the hips as well. It's going to allow us to use all those muscles around your pelvis to get the stroke driven from the centre of your body and then outwards. So the rotation is so important. It gives you length, it gives you power in every stroke. It also allows you to get a more relaxed recovery over the top with that arm. At the minute, you're quite flat on the rotation, which means that you're not really using those muscles through your body to drive the stroke from, and you're really having to work those shoulder muscles at the back to try and wedge your arm and your shoulder back. Make sure you're taking the kick around with that rotation as well. The only thing that shouldn't rotate unless you're breathing is your head. Now, when you do breathe, you're rotating the hips more, but that's because the head is almost dragging the rest of the body around with it. And you can see the head is going too far for what we want. We want minimal movement possible, so try and aim to only have one goggle or half of your face out of the water at a time when you breathe. Your breathing should just go with that rotation that's already happening with your body. So if you remember on the camp, we mentioned keeping your chin in line with your sternum or your chest bone, and that will allow you to breathe as you go to the side. As you enter with a hand, try not to go thumb down if you can help it. Try and go spear in entry with the fingertips first, but with the palm facing down and slightly back. You can see both hands are going in thumb down, and that, especially after a breath, is guiding you across that midline. And remember, we would never want to cross the midline, whether it's entering or pulling underneath the body as well. The route of the pull wants to be nice and simple, A to B, straight from shoulder width and straight back. Timing, that's something we're going to look at more on the next video, but we want to aim for a 3/4 catch-up timing, which means you don't move the lead arm, you keep it where that yellow line is until the other arm gets to its 3/4 of the way round the stroke, so with the elbow at its highest point. And that means it's going to keep us high and lifted in the water, and it's going to give us more control over what happens on that entry as well. You can see here that as we enter, we do dive across our body, sometimes more than others, and then we almost pull straight away, which kind of means we're falling off the timing and we're losing the control in the stroke. So the arm that's then entering has to throw itself and jab in quite quickly. So there's a lot of energy going into that entry point in the stroke, whereas what we actually want is all the energy and the effort coming from the body and the larger muscles around the pelvis and the torso. Like we said before, just always think about how much surface area you're presenting to the water at any one point. The less the better. That's going to cause less resistance and keep your speed there easily. Now your head's in a good position, like we're saying, you're keeping it really nice and still, but then when we breathe, you can see we go all the way around and we get both goggles out of the water, and that arm that's pulling at the front or leading drops very quickly, and it sweeps right out to the side as well. You can see what I mean here about the hips being quite flat as well. We need to increase that rotation. It allows length and power, but also a more relaxed recovery of that arm with the elbow leading until the halfway point. Here, from there, you want to reach forward, but keep the hand high. You can see your initial movement is to drop straight down and get straight into that pull, falling off that 3/4 catch up. And that yellow line is your midpoint, and you can see it's just there to highlight how much we're kind of wiggling side to side, and that's caused by that entry coming in thumb down and also having to jab because we've fallen off that timing. So like I say, don't pull this lead arm until the recovery one is 3/4 of the way around the stroke. And that means that you're sort of surfing with that lead arm. It keeps you high and controlled in the water, which means that that entry that's happening with the other arm isn't going to be rushed. We're not going to be, you can see from all the air bubbles that are coming down with it on these pauses here, that it is very rushed. And that's what I mean by sort of jabbing forwards. And there's far too much energy going into that bit, because that's not actually going to move you forwards in the water. Try and get onto that high elbow catch just a little bit sooner if you can. I feel like some strokes are better than others. When you breathe, you've got to think about it even more, but that's going to come hand in hand with that timing that we're thinking about as well. So if we look from over the top of the water on the way back here, so again, nice consistent leg kick, and when you're not breathing, your head is lovely and steady. You can see the stroke is, or the speed of the arm stroke is pretty much the same all the way around until you get to the point where you want to enter, and then it almost speeds up. So like I say, you want to put the effort into the catch. That's where the effort comes, not into the jab forwards on the entry. We're a little bit steep, I think, not steep, sorry, deep on this breakout. You can see the feet have almost broken out because of fly kicking before the upper body's broken out. So we want to be smooth where we've kind of coming up nearly level with the surface of the water, and we're sort of having that film of water go over the top of our head as we reach above the surface. Now there's that 3/4 catch-up timing with that yellow line again, making sure that the arm is still there when we get to that 3/4 position, and as soon as we get to there, then we can start pulling with that high elbow catch. And just make sure as you're reaching forwards that palm's facing down, so like I say, it's surfing. Try and get that from this position here as well. So before you enter, try not to go thumb down, try and get that palm down there, and that's going to help you with that palm position as you reach as well. And make sure that as you do pull, we're staying at that shoulder width, because like I say, sometimes, especially when you breathe, we're sweeping out wide as well as dropping too soon. A big thing that is going to be helped by that is this one goggle on your breathing. You can see we've got both goggles, we're looking almost backwards and up to the ceiling there. So in terms of engaging your core at the middle of your body, if that was engaged, it's going to completely turn it off by over rotating the head and dropping at the front of the stroke with the arm. So really try and think about minimal head movement as much as possible, but by being on the better timing, that's going to help that. You won't feel like you're dropping in the water and need to turn your head all the way around. So these last couple of pauses are just highlighting that 3/4 catch-up that we're just missing there. Now remember, we haven't done the freestyle session when you got these filmed, so obviously you weren't trying to implement any of these things just yet. So hopefully there's a lot of information there that's going to help you. Now from underwater side on, this is the same length as we've just seen. You can see the hips are obviously rotating more when we breathe, but like I say, they're being pulled round as opposed to doing the driving. That's where we want the energy and the effort to come from. Otherwise, they end up being quite flat. And so it's really hard to sort of get that high elbow recovery and use the muscles through your core to do everything we want to do to keep us high in the water and to gain extra power in the stroke as well, and to rotate. Think about that high elbow catch. You can see from here we've lifted the eye line and we've dropped that elbow straight away. So it means that we're not going to be catching as much water as we could possibly do, because we're slipping with all the forearm as well. We're not really able to catch water with the forearm as well as the hand when we're dropping the elbow. So breaststroke here, you can just see we're breathing right the way around and the hips are being pulled round. When we're not breathing, the head's in a lovely position. I really like that eye line, but the hips do then go very flat as well. It looks like you struggle to rotate more to your right side as well than your left. I don't know whether it feels like that to you, but be extra conscious of going that way. That yellow line is where I would have wanted that pulling arm to be at that point. Again, on this side now, so we're on that 3/4 catch-up timing, that's what you want to aim for. And when you are there, you should be really rotated, because that's at your furthest point of rotation. Remember, to be able to rotate, we've got to engage the core. So we're tilting the hips to flatten off the back. It could be, you think about it as in terms of tucking the tailbone under, drawing the belly button to the spine, however you need to think about it to engage that core. You can do it on land as well to practice, remember. So we've got a bit of feedback on that lower back like we did in some of the gym sessions as well. Like I say, really nice leg kick. You've got great flexibility through your ankles by the looks of it too, which is going to serve you very well. I really like the eye line. That's going to help with the engagement of the core. As soon as the head lifts, your body's like a seesaw, so it switches off the core and it drops the lower body. But if we can get that engaged and get on the timing, we'll stop sweeping out wide and dropping too soon on this lead arm quite so much. And the problem with that is as well, if we sweep too soon, we cross the body. And like I said before, we never want to be crossing that midline. So just as a visual to help you out here, here's a couple of videos of me doing full stroke, just to sort of put into pictures what it is that I've been explaining there. So hopefully you can see that the height in the water is pretty much sort of half the body in, or half the head in, half the head out. Our hips, as they rotate, are scraping the surface of the water, and it's allowing, like I say, that high elbow recovery. And here you can see that 3/4 catch-up timing as well. So we did a drill for this, which I'll explain later, but we've got to think about a lot at this point. We've got to rotate the hips, we've got to keep the legs going, we've got to keep the eyes down. There's lots and lots to think about. And you can see when we breathe, we look straight to the side, not backwards, and we try and keep the half of the face in the water. The more you get the hang of this technique, you'll create a bit of a bow wave just at the sort of side of your face where you want to breathe. So that means you won't have to lift your head quite so far around as well. If we look from head on here, so thinking about the root of the pull, thinking about the front end of the stroke, the catch, thinking about the breathing as well. Try and really think about trickle breathing, so letting the air out gradually through your nose so that it doesn't become an explosive breath, and it's going to keep your heart rate down and reduce any fatigue. So high elbow catch, we want it a little bit earlier than what you're doing at the moment if we can. For me, my one arm was better than the other. My left was always better than my right, so I really had to work on that right side. And then when we're breathing, remember high elbow is even more important. Keeping it on that shoulder width line is even more important, and making sure that it doesn't pull too soon. We leave it out there for what feels like abnormally long compared to even your other strokes. And then finally from side on, so hopefully you can see the hip rotation. We want the stomach facing one wall and then the other, and the leg kick goes with that as well. You've got a nice consistent leg kick. We want that to go with the rotation. The only thing that doesn't go with the rotation is the head until you breathe, as we mentioned before. And then trickle breathing, you can see there. You can see that the effort isn't going into jabbing the hand forwards. We're not taking loads of air and white water down with us there. The effort is at the front of the stroke on the press down and the catch. And if you remember, we got out on pull side and connected up that opposite hip and hand. Freestyle and backstroke, you're always working on those diagonal planes. So some of the drills we can look at. First of all, we need that core engaged. That's where to start. So if you remember on the camp, we did some floating like we're doing here. And we go from a relaxed position where you've got a lot of water probably on the arch at the lower back. And then everything else stays the same. Head position, hand position with the palms facing down at shoulder width. But as you engage, you can see it lifts you in the middle. And that is where we start our stroke. We've got to have that ready so that we can rotate, so that we can keep high in the water. Then, like I say, we need to increase your rotation if we can. So doing the rotation drill, snorkel, if you've got one, would be great. Trying to exaggerate, so we are getting right round from one side to the other, and it's all driven from the hips, okay? Not the shoulders and then the hips. The shoulders just work with the hips. Now, next one would be pop off. This is thinking about that timing along with everything else. So that 3/4 catch-up timing, we pause on that for a couple of seconds, but you've got head position, lead arm position, hip position, kick, all sorts to think about whilst you're on that pause. So don't rush that drill, because a lot of people do and then they don't get the most out of it. Finger drag is another one that people really rush, but I think that's going to be a useful one for you. Slowing the stroke down, encouraging the kick to really work hard, and it allows you to think about what's happening with those arms in terms of timing and the recovery being narrow and high elbow as well. So I hope that helps, Beatrice. Well done. Really good job on the camp. It was a pleasure to have you there. Here's a few extra notes, just general pointers to hopefully help you along as well. But if you've got any questions at all, please just let us know, and hopefully we'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye.